Afternoon, everyone. I'm on a ride along today with Officer Ollie and Officer Dan. Is that right?
Yeah.
We're in. What's this car actually called? Is it I mean, it's a police vehicle, but I don't know if there's a special kind of title for it.
This is just what's called the RT car, mate. It's an advanced car. It's just a high-powered BMW 5 Series estate.
Cool. So it's been an interesting shift so far, and we've been having lots of interesting conversations about community relations here in East London. Officer Ollie was telling me about his experiences so far. So I'm also going to ask him what drew you to the police force to begin with.
My dad was in the police. He did 30 years in the police and retired. As a kid, I kind of always wanted to be like my dad. I always wanted to join the police. When I first finished school, I was looking at going straight into it, and he taught me out of doing it. He told me to do something else first, and so I became a carpenter. I was a carpenter for 10 years, and then joined the police now. Something I've always wanted to do, and I think it was the right time for me to join, really.
Amazing. Dan, and how about you?
Again, mate, it was something I always wanted to do. I didn't envision myself at the beginning ever seeing it through. I struggled because I joined the Metropolitan Police back in 2008. Originally joined to be a police officer, failed the paper sync, and they gave me another option to go into the control room on a 2-year sort of probationary period with the view of becoming a police officer after that. So I've done that. However, thoroughly enjoyed myself in that environment. Ended up staying there for about 8 years. And then I sort of come to a point in my life where I'd done most of everything that I could up there.
That's all right. Yeah. So you were saying about, well, I was asking about kind of staying in the force. So you've joined over 15 years. What kind of motivates you to stay within it?
So I'll let Ollie answer first.
Well, I've not been in too long. I stay. I'll be honest, I enjoy it. It's nice. It does give you a sense of achievement. Do stuff like that. So we did find a kid there. We help him out. We give him first aid if he needs it, and then we find who's done it. Bring him to justice. Too many people get away with stuff they shouldn't be getting away with at the moment. It's nice to try and keep on top of it. It feels like you're doing something more. It's a good job as well. We've got a good team. We've got good colleagues with us. They've always got your back. Colleagues on the team.
And how about you, Dan?
For me, mate, it's a sense of helping people that don't know where to turn to. So I've always been one to help people if they needed help. Like, I didn't like bullies at school. I didn't like if I thought it was something right or there was something right and somebody was doing it bad against that, if that makes sense.
Yep.
In a roundabout way. As I've got older and sort of working in this environment and seeing the wider picture of it, now for me having kids, it's now about me trying to make the world a better place for my kids and their kids. That's my biggest fear for me at the minute, mate, as a parent now, is I don't want my children or any of my family members for that matter to be exposed to some of the stuff that we have to deal with. So
yeah,
coming to work every day, if that means stopping that or helping somebody, then that's what keeps me here, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I could potentially go to different roles now with a skill set that I've got. I've been doing the job like here 8 years now, 15 years experience overall. I could probably walk into another role, but I choose to stay here because I feel that on the response team, it's those people that are dialing 999 that need our help the most. And I'm going to be one of them people that are going to be there to first respond to it.
Yeah, no, I feel I've got 2 kids myself, and I do a lot of what I do and take a lot of interest in where I've grown up, you know, in East London and stuff, because I want it to be better for them. And so, obviously, like, doing policing is made better and easier with community relations. Some of what we've spoken about off camera, like stop and search, has had a bad rep in certain communities. Interesting just to speak on camera about your ideas of why the bad rep is and what could be done for people to maybe understand why it's such an effective policing tool, etc.
I mean, you can't argue that with the stop and search stats where it is, like we said earlier, it's black, Asian, ethnic minorities who have the highest percentage. Like I said, with this borough that we're on now, I said earlier, 20% of the borough is white British, 80% is other. So if we stop 10 people today, statistically, chances are 2 of them are going to be white British and the rest are going to be from different backgrounds. Not necessarily black, which is where it is targeted at, but that's...
I'll give 114 a couple of minutes, we'll go.
That's just for this borough. Obviously it's different all around the boroughs.
November 114, send it down to the RVMA.
At the moment, it's so important for us, because if we get a call, so we get a call to someone in the street, we will act on that intelligence. Someone in the street carrying a knife, this is their description. If the description is of a black male, then we're going to be looking for a black male. That's kind of our... That's leading to our grounds. Obviously we go on, it's not just a black male, it's not going to be any black man in the street. We're going to want a clothing description, we're going to want any scars, any marks on the person that someone might have seen. We're going to act on that. Equally, it could be a white male with tattoos on his arm that we're looking for.
We didn't touch on it earlier as well, mate. There's also units out there that are... I can't remember what the training is. It's like a behavioural...
Yeah.
It's like a behavioural training that helps them spot somebody like... I'm not saying this person here, but the way that they might be acting or walking in a certain way that may indicate that they might be carrying a weapon. So, like, that might go wrong sometimes because you're not always gonna get it right. Like, as you see earlier, the grounds that we built to stop the that vehicle earlier, and then building into it, having a conversation and then searching them. Yeah, we didn't find anything, but we've now sort of, without searching them, we wouldn't have found out that they were carrying large amounts of cash on them. Sorry, would indicate that they most likely are drug dealing on that level. So, would we have found that out today if we hadn't searched them? No. Did we have the grounds to search them? Yes.
Yeah. So earlier we were talking about responding to certain incidents, particularly mental health issues, and how there's a direction now from the top of the Met not to respond to certain mental health situations. If we just revisit that and get your thoughts on how you're not necessarily well resourced to deal with mental health issues, and that should be on the NHS to mostly pick up.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's a medical call, isn't it? A mental health issue is a medical call. It takes doctors years to become qualified as doctors. It takes them 8 years or something, and then they go into their speciality, which a lot of them is mental health and stuff like that. We don't receive that training. We do get some training, but it's largely to deal with someone there and then, like in person, as threats to their life. Obviously, if there's anyone ever threat to their life, we've got a duty of care to go to them, and we'll always go to those calls. That's not being in dispute. And like we said earlier, it's not actually, although Mr. Rowley said we're not going to attend mental health calls unless there's like an immediate threat to life or harm to someone, something along those lines. It's not really changing anything. It's kind of all we go to now anyway. We don't go and do checks on people. We might do a welfare check on someone if they haven't been seen in a while. That's different. But we wouldn't go and check on someone because they have mental health issues. It's more down to paramedics and mental health teams.
Yeah, and actually, what I've seen from a call we've just responded to, and even that discussion there is the need to like link up well with other public sector services. So mental health, council. If you just tell or speak a little bit about that, about how relations how it's important to have good relations with other bits of public services.
We work with all kind of public services really, and all different goals, multi-agency referrals and stuff like that. Everyday process. So if we go to someone today and they have a mental health crisis or something like that, we will put on a report that will be referred to social services, and it will go to like the they will look at that report. Them social services, they will maybe attend the address to the person who we've gone to. It's called a Merlin report. It goes to relevant doctors or local GPs if they need to know that someone that's under them has come in contact with the police, and they will look at that there and then. They'll say, we will write down why we've been there, what we've done, what actions we've taken on scene, and that could be from anything minor, like just a minor mental health crisis, to someone threatening to kill themselves jumping off a bridge or something like that. Obviously, if that happens, we're going to go down the line of sectioning someone for their own safety. But the reports go straight to all the councils and all the relevant people straight away with it.
I think talking about that called Air AD, in terms of working with partner agencies there, I think it's probably a key element to what's going on there at that address, with the issues with the kids playing football and how much of a detrimental effect that's having on that family there that we've just been to at 215. Obviously it's become that much of an issue for them that they've had to call police. But then, as you see, as the incident started to unfold and we started to investigate it as such, there was more to it than first met the eye, and there was another side to the story, which was in reality probably having a detrimental effect to the kids involved in it as well, which is what sparked all of this off, which 215 didn't tell us about originally, did they? They weren't completely honest with us, and from my experience, that's always the case. People always want you to believe them, as you said yourself. They want you to believe them and to help them there and then, which we have done as such there. We've stopped it from escalating. We've put in the solution as far as what we can do at the present time, and then it will be passed on to effectively our Safe Neighbourhood team, who will work in partnership with the local council. They'll have all the contacts, all the necessary bylaws as such, or anything like that they might be able to assist with, and just help with the community a little bit there, because like them flats they were nice, the ones that we went to. They're bigger than
actually
what I thought.
yeah, quite a bit of space.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of space. Like it is a nice little community. It is just down the road from the park. Like nobody's a criminal there as such or anything like that. So like that is a prime example of what a Safe Neighbourhood team can be doing there, and just stopping that from escalating and just building a bridge between the two families there and the kids out the back and whatever else, and just making it a better place for everybody to live.
Yeah, and have you seen any? Just interested to get your perspective on what the pandemic was like, and whether there are like mental health effects of communities perhaps having gone through, things like the pandemic, and whether that's improved relations within communities or made things tougher as some people, kind of lost out on bonding with people, etc., or the impact's kind of worn off.
You didn't work in the pandemic, did you?
No.
So for me, police in the pandemic, like you really see people in despair. Like the mental health calls were very high. They were predominant, and I went to some very, very lonely people who were struggling massively, to the point where one lad who I'd been to many times before had seriously injured himself, because he didn't have any outlet. Any outlet he did have was taken away from him. He couldn't, if he was suffering with his mental health, he would normally go out for a walk or something like that. But because he couldn't do that correctly or go and meet up with anybody, he suffered dramatically, ended up seriously injuring himself, which is quite sad to see.
Yeah, the epidemic was tough, but I think things have largely gone back to normal from your perspective on the beat, or?
Yeah, I think it has, mate. I still think it's still not where it used to be, but in a good and bad way. I just think now we're starting to see crime becoming a little bit more prominent. I've been working on the borough for like 8 years. Like it was quite high when I started, then it's gone low, it went high again. During the pandemic, serious crime went, like what I would deal with as serious crime, so there was serious crime going on in the background, because there most probably was, but it went down, and now it's starting to peak again.
Maybe just touching on that point about the different type of crime and where the effort is invested in, and hopefully this isn't too harsh a question, but on social media sometimes I see a kind of assumption or thought that kind of theft of bicycles or laptops aren't as prioritised by the Met. Is that something you're experiencing, or you don't recognise that kind of sentiment from people as such, or stuff like that isn't a high priority compared to the other stuff that you get called out on?
High priority. It kind of depends on what you're defining in terms of language. Obviously, for the person who's had that bike stolen, it's a high priority for them. It's really bad. But we have to triage the calls we get and the resources that we use. So if we have 2 calls come out at the same time, one's a stolen bike and one's someone who's been stabbed in the street, we're not going to go to a stolen bike. We're going to go, because there's an immediate threat to life there. We're going to go and we're going to deal with that threat to life straight away. And that's not saying it's not a priority, someone's stolen their bike. It's just that I think the best word for it is triage. It happens in hospitals. If you go to a hospital with a bit of a pain in your arm, you're going to be sat and waiting in A&E for a while. But if you go there with heart palpitations and your heart stops, you're going to be seen fairly quickly, sort of thing. It does get dealt with. It will be dealt with. It just might take a bit longer.
Yeah, because I mean, the fact is, it's public sector and there's like limited resources. It's not infinite stuff that can be done for everyone. And it speaks to something I shared earlier, that when playing football in the park with mates, if someone got injured, I'll definitely tell them not to call 999 and try and get a taxi or Uber, and not to put a burden on the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, if someone was injured, I wouldn't say don't call 999 to not put a burden on them. It's a call handler's job to triage the calls.
Yeah.
Give them the information, let them say, right, there's an ambulance coming, or ask them, say like, right, I think he's fit to go in a taxi, is that okay? They might say, oh, there's an ambulance almost there.
Yeah, well,
dealt with there and then sort of thing.
I'm talking about some instances where I know for sure my mates haven't broken ankles and stuff and can like hobble along. But the point I wanted to get to was, because I think it's come up a couple of times in our conversations that perhaps the public aren't as educated on some of the limitations or challenges on the services. Do you think there needs to be more public education on like stop and search, for example, on prioritization of cases?
I mean, it would be nice, but it's not on the public to do. It's not for them to do. They don't have to do it. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on it, no matter how much teaching they get, really, I would imagine.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there as well, mate, like educating the public on like our resources and where we have to put our time and resources, but at the end of the day, if they need a service from us, it's up to us to provide that service as such. Like we were just talking about in terms of where we put our resources and time. It doesn't matter to them. If you're in a moment of need, whether that be your bicycle's just been stolen, that could be the most traumatic thing that's happened to you in your life up until that point. So you're going to want us to deal with it. So it's just, if you try to educate the public, I think it'll take a very long time.
Yeah. So it may not be worth the
It may not
money
be worth
to,
it. And
shift.
Although that might not be a priority at the minute, tomorrow it might be. So then you'd have to re-educate the public again, and then this is that confusion as well. I'm not going to report that because that's not a priority to the police, and that's not what we don't want. Because if they don't report it to us, then how are we to know that that's happening? And then that disrupts our intelligence as a whole. What we were talking about earlier, again, and that's where we rely on the community to tell us things. Don't get me wrong. Like when I joined in 2008, we were a homing beacon for everybody to come to and report everything, and I think we're slowly starting to get back to where we need to be, and quite rightly, as we've talked about, Mr. Rowley talking about the mental health course.
Yeah.
So it is going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Mr. Rowley also, he's trying to put a big push on neighbourhood teams as well. He's trying to recruit more PCSOs and more for community engagement, and for that reason, I think he's trying to push for people to be more comfortable with coming to police by staffing more people in the neighbourhood teams at the moment.
Yeah.
It's early days, but I know he did say he's trying to recruit an extra 3,000 PCSOs or something like that. Might be more.
Yeah. Can we talk about PCSOs? So, like to draw the analogy for what I know in the NHS, you know, there's a talk of having like doctor associates or doctor apprentices, different type of roles that have different educational or, you know, training needs to try and fill gaps. Interesting to hear what your views on PCSOs are, limitations, positives, or whatever you're comfortable to share.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was a time you had to be a PCSO, wasn't there, to join them out? I think.
Yeah, there were different routes that you could come into.
Yeah.
A lot of I speak to Natalie Bird. She used to be a PCSO. A lot of her generation were PCSOs, but for me, my experience made PCSOs are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
If there's something like that incident we've just been to, that could probably be dealt with by PCSO as well, which would free me up to go and deal with somebody who has had their bike stolen around the corner where there's a suspect. So now my time's free. So they take that burden off of me having to worry about going to deal with that. Also, they're out and about and they're talking to people.
Gathering intelligence.
People might not want to talk to me because I'm in a police uniform. Being in the white and dark blue, whereas they're in a light blue, a completely different uniform, they might feel more comfortable speaking to somebody who is a civilian rather than to the police officer. But
they get to know people on their patch as well. They'll stop the regular people in the cafe. They'll stop and have a chat with them and check everything's all right with them. They might learn that potholes in the road, something silly like potholes in the road aren't working, aren't being repaired. And this is causing trouble for a lady who lives in the house because she's got a mobility scooter and she goes over it and she struggles. They get involved with little stuff like that. They'll sit there and they'll listen to that lady in that house, and that helps build like relationships between the community and the police as well.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. Small example, but they do loads for us as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was, you know, that Q&A at Town Hall where you know, I first learned about the opportunity to kind of meet with you guys like this. Talking about community outreach initiatives, what kind of things would you like to see more of to help you engage with the community better, so to speak?
I think what you're doing, coming out on a ride along.
Yeah.
I think for us, it's a bit difficult to say not working on a safer neighbourhood team or anything like that, but working on a response team, doing what we do, just coming to see what type of calls we go to, where our time's spent, what we're doing in between that time, like what we've been doing today. I think that helps just for us. I think it helps dramatically.
Yeah.
I think I know the organisation is doing a lot of road shows. The pop-up tents.
Yeah, there's been a few around the London Stadium and around West Ham Park and stuff like that.
Yeah, Stratford as well, which is good because that's community engagement. Them types of areas are filled with people from not just east side of London, all over. Like people travelling from Kent, like Essex, everywhere. So we're touching base with all different communities there. And not only that, it's like we're on a massive recruitment drive as well, aren't we? We want to recruit. We want to recruit people. Like it's best to recruit people from all walks of life, different experiences. Like Ollie was talking about earlier, he's had obviously the experience of having a trade, and working in that sort of environment where I've not had that. All I've known is like the corporate, well not corporate as such, but working for the Metropolitan Police. That's all I've known. It's all I've ever known. It's all, touch wood, that I'm ever likely to know, unless something dramatically changes for me.
But yeah, it's helpful to have a mix in your workforce of people who have different skill sets, experiences, etc. Yeah. One of the things I heard about in the Q&A town hall thing was the challenges of recruiting from black and ethnic minority populations. What's your experience like in the actual team? Like, is it actually? I think so. There was a challenge of recruiting and then also retaining. So some of them would come, but then they wouldn't stay for too long. Has that been something you've experienced directly, or?
I think retention is always going to be a problem, to be honest. A lot of people join the police and I don't think they quite realise what it's going to be like when they join, because it's not all driving on blue lights like that constantly all day, chasing after people. There's a lot of sit down, a lot of downtime, there's a lot of going out, being proactive, there's a lot of paperwork and other bits which I think people don't realise. And people who aren't used to shift patterns and having to try and get into it. Some people just can't handle it for the shift patterns. I mean, you might find it funny, but certain people, when I joined, I know a fella left because he didn't realise he had to work nights and weekends, which sounds silly, but if something you haven't looked into well enough, it's kind of hard. That's just the retention. In terms of like black and Asian people on our team, we've got quite a good mix of sort of male, female, all different races, all different walks of life of people, really.
Yeah.
I think if you were to look at some more specific units, it might be slightly different to them, more specialised units, then you might find a difference. But in terms of us on response team, I think we've got a fairly good mix. You'll quite regularly hear someone over the radio, have we got a Romanian speaking officer on, or something along those lines, or a Bengali speaking officer on at the moment, because it might be like the incident which went to, that the mum who didn't speak much English, it might just be you and her talking, and we can call language line, we can do all sorts, and we can get around that. But the easiest thing to do is have an officer who can understand them, come to the scene there and then, or speak over the phone to them. And it's quite handy having those people on your team to be able to call up and ask.
I can only imagine, yeah, particularly in somewhere like Newham, which is so varied and diverse.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've got a fairly good mix at the moment. Yeah. We don't have any on that search because you're in here. Like, so when we stop them, we have to give go wisely, which Dan did. So basically, we explain who we are. That's like a little mnemonic for us to remember what we have to do. We have to tell them who we are, what police station we're there for, what power we're using to stop them, what our grounds are, what we're looking for. And if you're in plain clothes, you have to show your warrant card. We're in uniforms, we don't show a warrant card. But that explains to them, and that tells them why they're being stopped, and that gives them a little bit of understanding as to why they're being stopped that day.
It also protects us legally as well. There's been certain situations, mate, where we've done searches and we haven't given certain things within the Go Wisely that would make it a legal search, and I've not got into trouble, but I've been in situations where people have got into trouble because of it. So it's really important that the way we built that one up earlier, like having that rapport, having that conversation with them, sort of building a bridge between us, but also getting some intel out of them, which helped us inevitably, didn't it?
Yeah.
Gave us the grounds to search, basically. Like, also, the passenger in that vehicle was drunk. He did look like he had been taking cocaine because of the mannerisms, how he looked with his lips and stuff like that. From my experience, he said that he had done drugs before, he's been in prison, etc. So yeah, that all built into it. But they went away with a positive.
Yeah, so
they didn't know they were spudding us and that before they went.
That's one of the things. Well, it's another one of the things that the Met are rolling out now. It's called ERR. It's like a positive outcome from searches. It's basically explaining to them, thanking them for the time, like we did with them. We got on quite well with them. We had a little laugh and a joke with them. Left them not feeling like they've been violated or gone out of their day. We left them with a good experience with us. They even said to us, "Oh, we like you too. Like, you're nice to us. We can have a laugh and a joke with you lot," which is what you want to do ultimately, and that really helps in that situation.
For me as well, mate, if we'd gone in there with a different attitude and been like really robust, it would have gone a completely different way, and then we might not have had the grounds to do it. But also, I want everybody to go home safe. I don't want them to get injured. I don't want to get injured. Like, I want to do it in the most effective way possible. If that means speaking to people, which is for me what this job is about. Like, whether it's speaking to them, speaking to the local community, speaking to people like yourselves. Like, communication is key for me. Like, if I can talk the situation down, I'd rather do that than escalate it anyway. If I have to, then obviously I will do, using our legal framework and spinning the national decision-making model, then so be it. But that'll always be my last resort.
Yeah.
There might be times, if I felt like he was going to act in an aggressive manner earlier, and we'd had that bit of information that we already had, I might have taken the decision to handcuff him, but I would have explained it to him. I would get him under control, explain it to him, because I'm justifying to myself and to him and to everybody around as well. And everything's recorded, mate. Everything on our body one's recorded. So.
And actually, just on that recording, when does it like kick in? Because is it self-activated when you get out, or like you have to activate it yourself?
We have to activate it ourselves. It's got a buffer of 2 minutes. So everything 2 minutes prior to me touching it is recorded, but there's no audio.
It doesn't. Oh, okay,
There's
okay.
no audio.
Okay.
So it's a really effective tool, mate. Like, I was around before we had body one, and it helps massively. It protects us. It protects the public. It's also like a reminder in court and stuff like that as well.
I was going to say on the protecting you side, because like there might be instances like you've alluded to where officers have had complaints against them, and yeah, potentially it's, you know, before cameras it was your word against their word, etc. But with that evidence, it's
so I don't know what the percentage is, but I know that since having body worn, it's reduced the amount of complaints
drastically.
drastically. I don't know what the actual percentage is. We've got this high grade to go to, mate. It's Lawrence Street, isn't it?
It's Lawrence Avenue, E12, just off Little.
Hey, keep this running if you want for this one.
Okay.
We'll talk you through if you want a bit of.
Yeah, please. So if you explain as much as you can about what's.
Once we wrote that out, just
So basically, this is someone who's called up. They've said someone's come to my door and slapped my mum. They tried to start a fight, basically. The suspect is now gone, but the suspect is a white male, blonde hair, 6 foot, wearing a white t-shirt and jogging bottoms. So already that's some grounds to start thinking about stop and search. You see someone walking down the street, walking away from that address, we get close to it. This informant's just stated that they know where they live, so they can identify them, but it's all quieting down now. So we want to go check no one's hurt. It's the first priority. No one's injured. If there's any first aid that needs to be given, a bit of first aid. If we have to call an ambulance, we'll get an ambulance there. At the moment, it doesn't seem like it, haven't requested one on your phone, but we'll double check when we get there. And that's pretty much all we've got to go on at the moment. Also, when we get there, we'll find out what the informant's saying and what's caused it, basically.
I think Lawrence Avenue is off the church.
Yeah, it's just off church, just before Little Ilford Pass.
So I was asking. So we were talking about the like retention of black and ethnic minority staff.
Yeah.
And when I was at NHS England, I was chair of our BAME staff network, which, you know, provided a space for people to feel like they could talk about their stuff.
Yeah.
Does the Met have similar internal networks? Do you know?
Yeah. There's loads of different networks across the organisation that people can get the support from. If they're any sort of background, ethnicity, any walks of life, people have access to their support networks. They're all available on our internet page. There's champions across all boroughs and stuff like that as well. There's like an overall as well, like a mental health champion as well, where people be struggling with mental health issues, that they can tap into those. But likewise, what we were talking earlier with the skippers, if they weren't to know where to get that access from, they can always go to them and they'll be able to point them in the right direction.
Amazing.
It used to be as well when I joined, like on a Wednesday would be like a sports day as well, which is always good to meet and socialise and network with other people as well.
Yeah.
There is still a bit of that on a Wednesday. Like I
especially
play,
for you. Yeah.
I play for the Met Rugby team, and they play on a Wednesday. The games are always on Wednesdays. There's sports teams for pretty much every sport. There's a football team. We've got borough football teams, haven't we? The football's a lot bigger than the rugby. But there's all sorts like there's hockey, there's swimming. Most play out down in Invercourt, southwest London. That's a big complex full of all sorts. Got lovely football field there, lovely rugby field there. It's where they train a lot of the horses as well that we use. Big swimming pool there.
Yeah, so he's not in at the moment, but there's a lad on our team called Dean, another Dean from what we were speaking about earlier. He's a champion for the LB. Changed it now, is it? LBQ. I can't never get it.
LGBTQ.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's always about. He's a champion for that. So he frequently, before he was off, he frequently gave talks to us, which definitely educated me. Because when he's been with me, I've been to a couple of calls, and he educated me on the sort of that community and how the recreational drugs that they use. So again, tapping into what we were talking about earlier, about that diverse community within inside the organisation, that definitely benefited me then, because I was none the wiser.
Yeah, and it means like when you meet someone from that community, you're able to develop those relationships better because you have an understanding of them. But
and it definitely did, because when shortly after that I went to a call and the geezer had been buying drugs, and then he ended up telling me that the drugs that he was buying, and that sort of triggered my next question as to what community are you part of, which then made him a vulnerable person because of the circumstances of that event. So, and I was able to service him better and sort of put the right help in his direction as well, and put the right things in place. So it definitely benefited me. I remember the story behind it and the circumstances behind it as well. We drove past it a couple of times today as well where it's happened. There's always a reminder, and then when you've got somebody sitting next to you, a family member that's joined because of that, it sort of hit home a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when we were talking about earlier, so why me and Ollie joined, and like why Dean's joined, and then to tell me that and thank me for it, just sort of like,
wow, that's heavy.
Gave me a little bit of confidence. That, like, even the worst outcome there has happened. Like, he's lost a family member. Dean has still sought to join. Like, he could have gone down any route there. He could have gone completely the other way. He could have joined a rival gang. He could have joined a gang. He could have sought retribution himself at some point. But no, he chose to join the police and try and have a positive outcome on his community, or his cousin's community. I don't know where Dean grew up, actually. I think he grew up in Dagenham, yeah.
It sounds like a lot of your experiences have been positive in the sense of, well, I mean, obviously I'm sure they're negative, but particularly on that internal team building kind of ethos, etc. Again, zooming out a little bit on a London-wide picture, there's obviously not been great press about the Met, and there are some accusations about, good apples like yourselves calling out bad apples. Interesting to get your perspective on that and on what the culture internally is like, and whether that needs to shift a lot or a little, or the right stuff is being done to change that.
See, people have asked me this question before, it's difficult for me to answer because for whatever reason people act differently around me. There's been certain instances that happened on the team which I don't see because it doesn't happen when I'm around, because I am the sort of person that will challenge and not put up with particular behaviours, and it comes as a shock to me when I hear about these other things. Like, there's been a few instances on our team, hasn't there, where we've had to call some people out, and there's been stuff that I've heard about that I haven't seen. So it's difficult for me to answer that because I think it's because of through my experience and how I carry myself. I don't know what you think. I mean, new in, it's probably,
yeah. I mean,
you see things differently to what I do.
It's hard, because different boroughs run differently as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at the Casey report as well, and when they're talking about calling out stuff like misogyny and racism and things like that, if you actually read it, for a response team, we actually come off quite well as a response team in that report. There's not a lot against us in that report. It's more specialist teams and stuff. Again, it's quite hard for us to talk about, because like Dan says, we're quite a good close team. If we see something wrong, most people will call it out there and then and say, it may be a joke, that's gone too far, and if it has, and someone else notices that it's affected someone, that they've made a joke, they will say that is out of order. You've got to apologise now. And obviously, if that deals with it, happy days there and then. And 9 times out of 10, it would, and it won't happen again. It's a learning curve, it's a quick learning experience. But also, we're quite close with all our sergeants. They're all good. If something does need to go to them, everyone's pretty confident to go to them, and they can escalate things further. Obviously, that's within the Met. That's not like dealing with public and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But quite equally, if we go to something and I do something wrong, and Dan thinks I've done it wrong, he will tell me straight away, and then we'll be like, right, okay, let's sit down, have a little chat about it. What could I have done? What should I have done?
You know? Yeah, they're like 5 up, mate. Sorry. I'm just getting out, man. Just grab the register and parcel.
So I've been on a ride along with Officer Dean and Officer Ollie. It's been an amazing experience going around East London here. Transparent, open conversations like this, I think, will go a long way to helping. So thank you so much for accommodating me.
That's right, mate. I've enjoyed your company today.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming
thanks a
out,
lot.
mate.
Cool, cheers.
Really enjoyed your
All right.